The fog rolls in before the old man reaches the dock. He stands there at the edge of Pier 7 in Gloucester, Massachusetts, one hand resting on a salt-crusted piling, the other holding a canvas bag that has seen more water than most boats. His name is Edmund Voss. He is 74 years old. He has not skippered a vessel in 11 years, and the 12 men gathered on the dock behind him are about to make sure everyone within earshot knows it. The boat is called the Maritime. 42 feet of working sloop, rigged for coastal passage, her hull painted the kind of blue that looks almost gray in low light. She belongs to a charter company that has recently hired young, loud, confident people who smell like expensive sunscreen and carry GPS units in both pockets. One of those people is standing at the stern right now, arms crossed, watching Edmund the way a man watches a dog that has wandered onto his lawn. His name is Carter Briggs. He is 29. He holds 2 offshore sailing certifications, a meteorology minor from the University of Maine, and the particular expression of someone who has never been humiliated and does not believe today will be the first time. Carter is the one who issued the challenge. The story of how it started matters, because it is the kind of story that starts small and becomes something else entirely by the time it finishes. 3 days ago, Edmund Voss walked into the Gloucester Maritime Heritage Center to talk to the dock manager about a possible passage job. A 60-mile coastal run from Gloucester to Provincetown, 1 crew, paid work, something to keep the hands useful. Carter Briggs happened to be there. He happened to overhear, and he happened to laugh. 60 miles, Carter said, loudly enough that the other young crew members looked up. With what instruments? You planning to read tea leaves, old-timer? Edmund did not answer. He set his canvas bag down on the dock manager's desk and looked out the window at the water the way a man looks at something he is not afraid of. Carter kept talking, the way people do when silence makes them nervous. He talked about Edmund's age, about outdated methods, about liability and insurance, and how a man who hadn't held a tiller in over a decade had no business pretending otherwise. He talked until the room got uncomfortable, and then he offered the challenge the way arrogant men always offer challenges, as theater, not as a real question. Tell you what, Carter said, you navigate the Maritime from here to Provincetown without electronics. No GPS, no radar, no radio for navigation purposes. Dead reckoning only. Old school. Make it in under 9 hours in whatever weather we get, and the charter company cuts you a check for $2,000, and the job is yours. He smiled at the other crew members. A couple of them smiled back. Edmund picked up his canvas bag. Agreed, he said. 2 syllables. Then he walked out. That was 3 days ago. The fog this morning is thick enough that you could lose a hand in it. Carter Briggs is standing at the stern of the Maritime, looking extremely pleased with himself, because fog means instruments, and instruments are what Edmund Voss is not allowed to use. The 12 people gathered on the dock include the charter company's dock manager, 3 of Carter's crew, and 7 people who simply heard about the bet and showed up the way people always show up when something either wonderful or terrible is about to happen. A few of them are quietly certain the old man will withdraw. A couple of them are hoping he does not. Edmund walks down the dock without hurrying. He is wearing a canvas jacket the color of old rope, wool trousers, and boots that lace to the ankle. His white hair is cropped close under a faded navy cap that has no emblem on it anymore. Whatever insignia it once carried has long since been lost to salt and sun. His hands, when he sets the canvas bag down on the gunwale and begins to open it, are large and steady and covered in the particular geography of a life spent doing physical work. Lines across the knuckles, a scar along the left thumb that curves like a crescent moon. Carter watches him. Weather Service has this fog sitting all morning, just so you know what you're walking into. Edmund does not look at Carter. He takes from the canvas bag a parallel ruler, a pair of dividers, and a chart, a paper chart, No AA chart 13281, the kind of chart that costs $12 and takes actual skill to read. He unfolds it on the dock with the calm of a man who has done this in the dark, on a moving deck, in rain. He studies the chart for 30 seconds. His lips do not move. His eyes move in a way that looks, if you are watching closely, less like reading and more like remembering. Then he closes the chart, folds it along its original creases, and puts it back in the bag. Someone on the dock murmurs something. Nobody laughs yet. Edmund steps aboard the Maritime. The engine turns over. The lines go slack. And then the boat and the old man slide out into the fog, and the harbor swallows them, and Gloucester disappears behind a gray curtain that has no seam in it anywhere. Carter Briggs is aboard. The terms of the bet required a witness. He sits in the stern, his phone in his hand. Its navigation apps conspicuously visible on the screen, though he has agreed not to assist Edmund or provide course corrections. He watches Edmund settle behind the wheel with the look of a man who has already won and is only waiting for the paperwork. The first thing Edmund does after clearing the harbor mouth is cut the engine. Carter looks up. "What are you doing?" Edmund is listening to the water. His head is slightly tilted. His right hand rests on the wheel but loosely, like a hand resting on the shoulder of someone he trusts. The sails go up. The Maritime finds the wind, southwest, light, maybe 8 knots, barely there in the fog, and begins to move. She takes on the particular kind of silence that sailboats carry when they are doing what they were made to do. Carter stares at him. There's no visibility. You can't see the landmarks. Edmund glances at the compass mounted at the helm. He adjusts the wheel by 3 degrees. Then he reaches into his jacket pocket and removes an object Carter has never seen anyone use on a boat. A small, battered mechanical watch, which he sets face up on the compass housing, and a notebook the size of a paperback novel, its cover dark with water staining, its pages dense with handwritten numbers. He writes something in the notebook. Bearing. Time. Estimated speed, which he is reading from the feel of the hull and the sound of the water running along the keel, not from any instrument. Dead reckoning, course speed, time elapsed, the geometry of trust. Carter opens his mouth and closes it. He looks at his phone. The GPS says they are approximately 1 mile east-southeast of 10-Pound Island. It is correct. Edmund does not know this. Edmund does not look at Carter's phone. Edmund writes in his notebook, adjusts the wheel a half degree, and watches the surface of the fog. 40 minutes pass. The fog does not lift. The water changes color very slightly, from the grayish-green of the inner harbor to a deeper, colder blue. And Edmund notices this and does not mention it, but he writes a number in the notebook and adjusts their heading by 2 degrees south. Carter says nothing. He is watching the GPS. His jaw is tight. Here is what Edmund Voss is doing, and what Carter Briggs does not yet understand. He is reading the ocean the way a man reads a face he has known for 50 years. The smell of the air, heavier now, carrying kelp and the cold, particular smell of deep water, tells him they have cleared the offshore shoals. The rhythm of the swells, long and low and rolling from the northeast, tells him they are in open coastal water. The color of that water, even through the fog, tells him things about depth and current that no screen can summarize in a single number. Edmund Voss served 22 years in the United States Navy. He was a quartermaster, the rating responsible for navigation, charts, and the safe conduct of the vessel. He deployed aboard the USS Compass Island, the Navy's experimental navigation trials ship, in 1971. He ran deep water passages in the North Atlantic without satellite assistance, because satellites were not what they are now, and because the work demanded that a man learn the ocean the way his grandfather had learned it, by being in it and paying attention, and surviving long enough to remember. He navigated in the Persian Gulf in conditions that current officers study as case examples. He taught celestial navigation at the Naval Station Newport for 6 years. He has logged more than 90,000 nautical miles over a career that ended not in disgrace, but in the quiet, undramatic way careers end when a man decides he has given what he had to give and walks home. Carter Briggs does not know any of this. Carter Briggs knows what he saw on the dock, an old man with a paper chart and an outdated hat. 2 hours into the passage, something changes. Edmund stops writing. He sits very still at the wheel for nearly 30 seconds, long enough that Carter looks up from his phone. The fog is thicker here, if anything, pressing down on the water like a ceiling. There is no horizon. There is no reference point. There are only the sound of the boat and the feel of the water and the breathing of a man who is entirely inside the problem. Then Edmund adjusts the heading by 4 degrees east. Carter glances at his GPS. His eyes stay on the screen for a long moment. The GPS shows a current drift of approximately 3 degrees west over the last 90 minutes, a subtle tidal push that would, if uncorrected, have moved them slowly offshore of the Provincetown approach. Edmund has just corrected for it, manually, by feel. Carter does not say anything, but he sets the phone face down on the seat. This is the moment. The audience watching from the dock back in Gloucester cannot see it, because they are not here. But aboard the Maritime, in the fog, Carter Briggs goes quiet in a way that is different from his earlier silence. The earlier silence was impatience. This silence has something underneath it, something that begins, very slowly and against its will, to resemble respect. The hours pass the way hours pass on the water, not in minutes but in the slow accumulation of small details. The fog thins once, enough to show a flat gray sky and a horizon line that appears and vanishes. Edmund looks at the sky during that 30-second window with the focused attention of a man reading a page of vital text. He takes a bearing by eye on a smear of lighter gray in the overcast, the sun's approximate position filtered through cloud, and he writes in the notebook and adjusts the heading by a single degree, then nods as if confirming something he already knew. Around hour 4, the wind shifts. Carter feels it. The sails start to luff. The boat begins to roll. He looks at his weather app. The system has moved faster than forecast. The wind is backing northwest, building toward 15 knots, and the fog is starting to lift at the margins as the pressure changes. Edmund has already felt it. He is easing the sheet on the mainsail before Carter has finished reading the screen, bringing the boat to a new point of sail with the smooth efficiency of someone who has done this in conditions that made this look like a fairground ride. Carter watches his hands, watches the way the boat responds. His mouth is slightly open. "How did you know it was shifting?" he asks. The arrogance is gone from his voice. It has been replaced by something genuine. Edmund looks at the water for a moment before answering. "Smell of the wind changed. Temperature dropped 2 degrees. He pauses. "Swells started crossing." He does not say this as a lesson. He says it the way you say something obvious to someone who has finally asked the right question. The northwest wind builds the fog into long, rolling banks, and between those banks, for the first time in 4 hours, there is visibility. 2 miles, maybe 3, and the coastline appears. A dark edge of land against the gray sky, low and thin at first, then resolving into the particular flat silhouette of the outer cape. Carter looks at his GPS, looks at the coastline, looks at the GPS again. Edmund has brought the Maritime to within a 1/4 mile of the planned approach line to Provincetown Harbor, a line that Carter, in full honesty, would have required active GPS guidance to hold in those conditions. The GPS on Carter's phone shows their position. It shows that they are exactly where Edmund said they would be, based on nothing but a paper chart, a compass, a mechanical watch, and 52 years of paid attention. The breakwater at Provincetown appears out of the fog on the port bow. The long stone arm of it, with its lighthouse at the end, a lighthouse that Edmund Voss has seen on paper charts for decades and is seeing now in person for the first time in 11 years, sits there in the lifting mist, the way landmarks sit when they have been exactly where you knew they would be. Edmund cuts the boat's heading slightly to port, lining up the harbor entrance with the particular economy of movement that is impossible to fake. The Maritime slides through the harbor mouth at hull speed, sails drawing, engine still off, as quiet as a thought. People on the Provincetown dock watch them come in. A couple of them stop what they are doing. There is something about a sailing vessel arriving in silence, without motor, in heavy fog, with the kind of unhurried precision that suggests the fog was simply never an obstacle. There is something about that sight that makes people go still. Edmund brings the boat alongside the dock in a single, clean approach. No fuss, no correction, and the lines are cleated before Carter has entirely processed what he is supposed to do with them. He checks the time on his phone. 7 hours and 14 minutes. Well under 9. He checks the GPS one more time. Then he puts the phone in his pocket and stands there on the dock in Provincetown looking at Edmund Voss, who is coiling a line with the same focused absence of drama with which he does everything. The dock manager back in Gloucester, who has driven down ahead of them by road to witness the arrival, is standing at the end of the dock with his own phone out and his mouth slightly open. Carter says, "Sir." Edmund looks up. Just a look. No performance in it, no waiting for credit. "I need to ask you something." Carter's voice is different now. Lower. "Your hat. The Navy cap. What was your rating?" Edmund finishes coiling the line. He sets it down on the cleat and looks at Carter the way a patient man looks at a question that is finally the right one. "Quartermaster Chief," he says. 22 years. Carter nods slowly. "Where did you serve?" And so it comes out. Not as a monologue, not as a speech, but in the fractured, reluctant way that men who have done difficult things describe those things when someone actually wants to know. The Compass Island. The Persian Gulf, 1982, during the tanker war, when navigation errors in those shallow, complex waters could put a vessel on a sandbar or in a minefield and nobody was going to come pull you off. A passage through the Strait of Hormuz on dead reckoning when the ship's navigation systems went down during a period of active electronic interference, and the commanding officer told the quartermaster chief to get them through, and the quartermaster chief did, holding a course by chart and compass and the color of the water and the smell of the Iranian coast for 6 hours, and brought the ship out into the Gulf of Oman with every soul aboard intact. There is a Navy Commendation Medal in a box at Edmund's apartment in Gloucester. He has not looked at it in years. The citation reads, among other things, "Demonstrated exceptional navigational skill under adverse conditions, ensuring the safe passage of USS Compass Island and her crew through restricted waters without functioning electronic navigation aids." Carter Briggs reads this citation on his phone later that day because the dock manager back in Gloucester knows the story and sends it to Carter without being asked. Carter reads it standing on the Provincetown dock in the late afternoon, when the fog has gone, and the light is gold on the harbor water, and the Mara Jean is tied up clean and still. He finds Edmund sitting on a bench at the harbor's edge, drinking coffee from a thermos, looking at the water in the way Edmund always looks at water, with the attention of someone who still finds it worth attending to. Carter sits down beside him. He holds out his hand. Edmund looks at the hand for a moment. Then he shakes it, and the handshake is brief and solid and complete. "I was wrong about you," Carter says, "and I was wrong about it in a loud place in front of people. I'm sorry." Edmund looks at the harbor. A lobster boat is coming in, its wake spreading in 2 long lines behind it. "You were right about one thing," Edmund says. "I haven't skippered in 11 years. He takes a sip of coffee. "Doesn't mean I forgot how." Carter looks at him. There is something on his face that is hard to name, a combination of things that young men rarely feel all at the same time. Shame and admiration live next to each other sometimes when a person is honest enough to let them. The dock manager, whose name is Roy, brings the envelope over. $2,000 in it. The charter company cut the check before they even saw the arrival time because Roy had told the owner the bet was a mistake from the beginning, and the owner, to his credit, had said that if the old man pulls it off, you pay him before he asks. Edmund takes the envelope, folds it once, and puts it in the pocket of his canvas jacket. He does not open it. He does not count it. He simply acknowledges it the way a man acknowledges the settling of a debt that was always going to come out this way. Roy offers him the passage job. Gloucester to Provincetown, standing position, starting the following Thursday. Edmund looks at the harbor for a moment, at the water moving between the pilings in its slow, insistent way, the way water moves when it has always moved and always will. Thursday works, Edmund says. And that is all. There is a particular kind of knowledge that lives in the body, not in the mind. It lives in the hands of a blacksmith who has been away from the forge for a decade, but whose wrists still carry the memory of the hammer's weight. In the eyes of a medic who has not treated a wound in 20 years, but whose fingers still know the pressure point. In the feet of a boxer who has not stepped into a ring since the first gray appeared at his temples, but who still, without thinking, slides the back foot before the punch arrives. Edmund Voss does not think about what he knows. He does not keep score of it. He spent 22 years learning the sea the way the sea can only be learned, by being in it, afraid sometimes, wrong sometimes, correcting and adjusting and paying the kind of attention that eventually stops being effort and simply becomes the way a man sees. When Carter Briggs looked at Edmund on that dock in Gloucester and saw an old man with outdated tools, he saw a man who had stopped. What he missed was everything underneath the stillness. The accumulated weight of 50 years of practice compressed into a quality of attention that looks, to the wrong eye, exactly like nothing at all. The fog rolled in before the old man reached the dock. And it didn't matter. Because there are men for whom fog is not an obstacle. It is simply the condition in which the work happens. Men who learned their craft in the dark, under pressure, when getting it wrong cost something that couldn't be given back. Those men carry the knowledge differently. It has been stress-tested in ways that certificates and apps and meteorology minors cannot replicate, and it sits in the body differently as a result. Quieter, deeper, more certain of itself precisely because it has never needed to announce itself. Carter Briggs went home that evening and opened his copy of Bowditch, the American Practical Navigator, the textbook of seamanship that every serious sailor owns and most serious sailors have not read since their certification course. He opened it to the chapter on dead reckoning. He read it twice. He thought about the way Edmund's hand rested on the wheel, the half-degree adjustment, the title correction made by feel. He read until the light in his apartment went flat, and the harbor outside his window turned dark. He is a better sailor now than he was that morning. He will probably never be as good as Edmund Voss. But something changed in him on the water that day, in the fog, watching an old man navigate by attention alone. Something that people who have been genuinely humbled by genuine mastery will recognize. A door opened, the kind that doesn't close again once you've seen what's on the other side. Roy gave Edmund the passage job. Edmund took it. He skippers the Maritime every Thursday through Sunday during the season now, and the guests who book the trip are told in the charter company's listing that their captain uses traditional navigation methods alongside modern instruments and